Hello and welcome everyone to today's session for Flutter 101 Bootcamp. First of all, if you can hear my voice on the screen is clearly visible to you, so let me know in the comments so that we can move forward with today's session. Cool, I'm assuming it is all clear. So let's move forward with the today's session. So basically for today, what all things we'll be covering is firstly, we'll be looking at what are the different structures or the file structures which are generally used when you are working on a Flutter project. So you must be thinking, how do I know about these file structures which are used? So some of them are used in the communities, like the Flutter community prefers some, and some are used in the industry. So a company, when it is working on a Flutter project, so they also have a particular structure which is called the advanced structure, which they use to create their product or the project which they are working on. So let's move forward with the first or the basic structure which we have. So let me open my project. Let's wait a second for the project to load. Yeah, so I am assuming the project must be visible to you guys as well. So as yesterday I told you that we have various different files and various different directories which are present when we are creating the Flutter project. So this is generally called the basic file structure, which is there when we are creating our first Flutter project, or when we are creating any other Flutter project, which is basically the counter app which we made yesterday. And also I uploaded a video today morning where I told you guys how you can create that app from scratch. So let's look at all those files which are present here and what is the use of all the files which are here stored inside this directory or inside the main project root directory. So as I told you guys yesterday that .dart tool, it is one of those file along with .idea, .packages and .metadata which we don't interact with when we are working on a project. So it generally contains all the configuration in the JSON format and all the build things. So we generally don't interact with this and this .idea files. So you can ignore these two files. Next, we have this Android directory. So all the files which are related to the Android part of our project are present inside this Android directory. And inside this Android directory, we are also having various different files and directories. So this is a Gradle file. So stores all the things related to the Gradle, which shouldn't be visible to the user, which are generally not visible to the user. Sometimes when you get some errors, so there are some things which are related to this file also. So you can clean your project and start working and running the project again. The next thing or the next directory I can say is the app directory. So it basically, if some of you have knowledge about Kotlin or have worked on Kotlin prior to this, so you must be very familiar to this app directory. So what happens in Kotlin is that inside this app directory, we have a build.gradle file, which contains all the build, what we can say, a build code related to the particular Android project. So we have two build.gradle files. The first one is present inside the app directory, and the second one is present inside the root Android folder, which is here. You can see here. So we generally specify various different things which are present inside our root directory. So let me show it to you. What are the things which we generally specify inside this build.gradle file? Yeah, so the first thing which we specify are the local properties which are here. We also can add some plugins in it. So sometimes there are chances that you must be messing up with some plugin, or some plugin must be missing from your Android directory. So you can add those plugins here. Also, it has provided an option like compile SDK version. So there are various different packages in Flutter. So you must be thinking what packages are. So you don't need to worry about that. We'll be covering packages in our upcoming session. So if you are working with some packages, they generally don't allow you a particular SDK version, or they are like working with some specific version. So you can change the SDK version from here. You can also set your minimum SDK version and your target SDK version. So you can set what version your app is targeted towards. And there are various different options like this release option. It has also some comments written which you can read out when you are working or seeing the code present in this particular file. You can also add some of the dependencies which are generally the implementation of the version files which we are using. Next, we have this source directory present inside this app directory. So it has three different directories, which were the first one is the debug directory, second one is the main directory, and the third one is the profile directory. So these directories have the files related to their particular need, but we generally interact with the main directory as it has this Android manifest file stored inside it. So when we are using a file like in our app, we need internet access, or in our app, we want to use the files which are present inside the file manager. So we need to specify some metadata or activities to it so that we can interact with the features which are available in our app. So all these things we can add inside this Android manifest file, and it is present inside the main directory. And as I told you guys that the Kotlin project, if you are working with Kotlin, then you can like view your Kotlin files or store your Kotlin files inside this Kotlin folder. But we generally working with Flutter, we don't interact with this. We only interact with this Android manifest.xml file. Now let's move towards the Gradle folder. This has Gradle wrapper properties or .jar file related to your Gradle. So we don't interact with this, but it is present to store the Gradle related things. And here also in Android directory, we have a .gitignore files, which is used to ignore all the things when you are pushing your project to the code, so that the size of your project reduces to minimum, like the minimum size which could be possible. Next, we have the build.gradle, which is available for this Android directory. So you can add your the repository for Google or JCenter, or you can add the class paths for Kotlin version, or you can specify if you are interacting with Firebase, so you can add your class path here. We also can specify the sub-project directories if we are having two different sub-projects inside a particular main project. Apart from this build.gradle, we have some more files which are present here, which are like Flutter application, Android IML file, and Gradle properties file. Some of you are having like issue with installing or running emulator or what we can say physical devices. So there are chances that you must be messing something inside the Gradle properties. So you can look for that if you are facing some particular issue. But rest all files are the one which we generally don't interact with. So they are present for like the smooth running of our Android app or the Android section of our Flutter app. Next, we have this build directory, and this build directory generally has all the build versions or all the apps which are related to the final app which we want to release. So it has all the apps which we have built. Whenever you are creating an app, and when at last once your app is completed and you are running the Flutter build command for iOS or for your Android, so it will be storing that build or the final application inside this build directory inside the apps. So you can look for that like when we'll be creating our final app. So I'll be showing you where this project or the final project is stored inside these directories. Rest of directories which are present here, we generally don't interact with them. So that's not important for you guys. Next, we have this iOS folder. So what iOS folder is, it shows all the files related to the iOS section of our app. And apart from that, we have a Flutter folder here also, which has all the configuration files related to the Xcode. So Xcode files are stored generally here. Now, the next thing which we have here is the runner. So we generally interact with this runner folder when we are what we can say adding the assets or the logos for our application. So when you want to change the default logo of the application, so you generally need to change this assets folder inside this. Next, we have the base project folder. So we generally don't interact with it. And inside the app delegate.swift file. So this is a file which we sometimes interact or sometimes change the code for it when we are trying to implement some particular packages, or when we are trying to implement some features from the Firebase things. So we make some changes to it, but most of the time the code remains similar. Next, we have some the generated plugin file, or the what we can say, this registrant file. So we don't interact with all these files which are available here except for this app delegate file and the assets folder. This is also one of those files which you sometimes see, or you sometimes add a key and string to it when you want to make your package work inside the Flutter project, the iOS part of your Flutter project. So this is what you generally interact with the iOS directory. These two folders are also like not useful for us. When you are working with Swift, then you generally work or interact with these folders, but for Flutter part, you can ignore these folders. Next, what comes, or what is an this one is an important part for our Flutter project. So this is the lib directory, which generally has all the files related to our Flutter project. This lib directory also is like divided into various different sections. So that will be consisting of our intermediate file structure and the advanced file structure. So I'll be covering them a bit later in this session. But for a beginner, or for a person who is starting with Flutter, or is making running the Flutter app for the first time, you can make all the files related to your project. Like you can make all the available screens, or all the screens which you want to display inside your apps. You can directly add dart files inside this lib directory. So when I started with Flutter, I also added all the files inside this particular lib directory. So I didn't created subfolders for all the screens, but now I do though that, and I'll be telling you like which one is the preferred one. Next, inside this test directory, we generally write the test cases for a particular thing which we are doing inside our app. So you must be thinking what these tests are. So these are the test cases which are generally written, which we want to be passed before we want our app to be released in production. So some people write this test before, and some people write those tests afterwards, like once they have coded, and then they test their application for the particular test cases. But it is always preferred to write the test first. For example, if you are having an API and you want that this API should be returning some things from the cloud, or some JSON files or JSON data it should be returning. So what you can do is you can write a test for it, and you can check you are getting an output from the API by using the HTTP, and then you can pass the data which you have got and see if the request made is successful or it is providing some error. And according to this test case, you can then code your application. So this generally has all the test cases which we use for our application. And as I mentioned, for the Android part, our main Flutter directory or the Flutter project has .getignore file. So it generally has all the things which we want to ignore or we don't want to add inside our Git directory, so that the application size or the project size could reduce to minimum when we are pushing or sharing our code through Git. This metadata and .packages files are like not necessary ones, and these are the files which Flutter generate. Next, we have this IML file. So this is also one of those files which we generally don't interact with. Next, we have this pubspec.log file. But before telling folks about this pubspec.log file, let me tell you about this pubspec.yaml file. So through this file, we generally add all the packages or all the dependencies which we want to add inside our Flutter project. Also, this pubspec.yaml file is the file which provides us with the feature of adding images from our folders or from our directory, or like adding custom fonts to our Flutter project. So using this pubspec.yaml file and changing some things from it, we can add different things according to us. So let me walk you through all the components which are present inside this pubspec.yaml file. So the first thing which is present here is the name for our Flutter project. So you can see here on the top, it says Flutter application 1123, and similar name is present here. Next thing is the description. So basically it is a new Flutter project which I created. So you can change the description according to yourself. Just a sec. So sorry, folks. I just checked the chat just now. So you guys are saying that it is not visible or clear. So I'm sorry for that, as I'm trying to stream on the maximum quality and trying to capture for the maximum quality which my computer can support. So for today's session, what we can do is we can move forward with these things. And from tomorrow's session, what I was doing, or what one of you guys suggested, that what we can do, we can make pre-recorded videos and we can provide you those videos in the best quality possible. So like 4K or 1080, so we can provide you those videos in that quality. So if you guys agree with this, so let me know in the chat box. Yeah, so one more thing which we can do is that as we will be having the videos in 4K or 1080p short and edited for you guys, we can run those videos or stream those videos directly inside the live stream through using OBS. And while the video is playing, we can take your doubts if you are facing any doubts, and then we can clear those doubts directly on the go, so that you don't guys don't have to struggle with the doubts later on. So if you guys agree with this, so like I'll be much more happier if you guys are enjoying and learning on the go. And because of this streaming issue, I don't think like it is good if we are doing this. Okay, cool. I guess most of you like the idea. So, like, we'll be recording the session and providing you or streaming all those session live inside the live stream in the best quality which we can provide to you guys. So, for now, I guess let's move forward with the today's content, and then I guess we can change the things from tomorrow on. What say? Okay, cool. Let's move forward with the today's things. Yeah, so basically, I was talking about this Pubspec Dot YAML file. So as I mentioned, that this description is basically the description for the Flutter project, or whatever description we want to set for the Flutter project. Next, we have publish to. So if we want to publish our application to something, or if we are having a package and we want to publish it over something, so we can add this publish to also. Else we can let it set to none. Next, we have this version. So this is basically the version of our Flutter app. And after this, we are having the environment setup. So this basically is for the SDK versions which we are using. So it has less than equals to sign and less than sign. So all those versions which fall between this, so it will be supporting all those SDK versions. Next, we have the Flutter SDK, and we have set it to Flutter. So basically, it will be taking the SDK which we have stored inside what we can say inside the main directory. So you must have configured this Flutter while you are installing Flutter, or while you are running your first time Flutter command. Next, we have the Cupertino icon. So if you want to add icons related to iOS devices inside your Flutter project, so you can set Cupertino icons, and you can add version to it. So there are various different versions to it. So you can set version according to that. Next, we have some dev dependencies. So these are used when we want to test the Flutter SDK on the basis of some dependencies. So generally, we don't add many dependencies in this dev dependencies. We directly add them below this Cupertino icons. So it's up to you. Like, but the most preferred one is this dev dependencies. Sorry, the most preferred one is this dependency. So you can add all the dependencies or the packages which you are working on below this Cupertino icons. Next, what I was telling is if you want to add some assets or images to your Flutter project, so you can use this assets folder, or you can uncomment it directly, and it will be making all the assets which are available inside the particular location available to the app. So you can then use all those assets inside your project. So you need to specify the location as well. So if the location is not set, then it will be having some problem accessing the files. But if the location is already set, then you guys can access all the files directly. So let me uncomment it as of now. Also, if you want to add some default or custom fonts according to yourself, then you can uncomment this font and then add a family and the font file which has the extension of .ttf directly to these fonts. So it will be like adding all the custom fonts which you want to this particular Pubspec.yaml file, and then you can use them inside your application. Next, we have this Pubspec.log file. So what this log file is, so let me give you an example. Suppose you are making a Flutter application, and you have created all the application, you have done all the things, and now you are storing that application code on Git. Now your friend asks that, hey, I want to develop a similar application to you, which you've created. So can you give me the basic code for it? And you share the GitHub link with him, and he clones the project and he start working on the application. So there are chances that the versions which your friend is using may differ from the versions which you are having. So the version of the Flutter may differ. The version of the what we can say environment or the environment setup for him could differ. The iOS or the OS which he is using may differ. So in that case, the application will most probably crash. But taking care of that, what we are provided is that we are provided with the pubspec.log file. So what pubspec.log file do is, all the dependencies which we add inside this pubspec.yaml file under the dependencies option, it creates a default setup or like a log for all those things. So when you are running your project inside a secondary machine or inside a different machine, so it fetches a particular version which with the app was working previously. So for example, if I am adding my Firebase and like I am running the similar application or the similar project in some other machine, so it will be fetching the particular version which was working in the previous machine for Firebase, and it will be fetching those and it will be making the app run. So this is why this pubspec.log file is present here. Now Readme file. So all of you who have like seen the Git video which we had in the 30 days of web development, so you must be very similar to this readme directory. So basically this is for the people who are visiting your GitHub repo to give them a gist of what all things you have inside your directory or what all things you have inside your project. uh, like you can add all those things here. Now let's move toward the second or the intermediate file structure. So let me switch my project. Yeah. So for this intermediate type of structure, what we have is all the things are basically similar, but what changes is the files inside this lib directory. So for the lib directory, we have various different sections. The first one is the src directory, which is also called the source directory. So this source directory has three different directories or subdirectories present inside it. The first one is the controller, the second one is the model, the third one is the view directory. So the controller directory is for controlling all the things or all the services which we are running inside our Flutter application. So it could be related to block pattern. So you must have seen on Instagram or on various different social media platforms that whenever you are opening the app, it is directly fetching new and new things. And when someone adds a new photo or someone uploads a new photo, you are provided with an notification on the top that you can refresh or new posts are added, and you can refresh to like load all these posts. So this is basically with the help of block pattern. So we add all the code related to that pattern inside this controller directory. Next, we have this model directory, which is for handling the code which is related to the database. So database modeling is done generally in it. If we are fetching some data and it is provided to us in the form of JSON, so we can pass that data and then decode that data and like convert it according to ourselves inside the particular variables which we want to assign. Next, we have this view directory. So view directory generally contains all the code related to the UI part. So all the code which we are having related to the UI, which is generally visible to the user. So we add all the code related to that inside this view directory. and main.dart remains inside the lib directory. So it generally has all the code which is used for running our app or like displaying the first screen of our app. Now let's see the advanced file structure which I use now. And I have created around 3 to 4 different application like the real world application in this particular type of structure. So let me walk you guys through this. Let's wait for a while. Let me close all the directory in which the UI part is stored. Yeah, and closing this as well. So in this as well, all the things which are related, which we covered in the first or the basic file structure are present same, but the thing which changes the directories which are present inside this lib directory. So basically inside this lib directory, we have a similar main.dart file which we are having. So in this main.dart file, we generally add some code related to like if we want to check some UI features or we want to check something, for example, when you are logging into some application and you want to when you are relogging or logging in for the second or third time, so we generally check if the user has logged in previously, and if the user has logged in previously, so it will be skipping the logging screen and it will be taking you directly to the main screen. So we generally add the code related to that here. So you can see here I have added it inside my main.dart file. Next things which we have inside this lib directory is the API part. So this API part is related to like fetching all the data which we have stored inside the APIs whenever we are using the API inside our application. So you can or we can add the data inside this API by creating a new folder with the name of the API, whatever we are working with. Next, we have this blocks part. So this block is something which I just told you, like for Instagram, when someone is uploading a new photo, you get a notification saying new post available and you refresh it to see the new post. So this block is related to that, and you see all the data related to things which are updating in the background available on your screen on your device or at the moment. So the blocks is generally related to that. So we store all the data related to the block part inside it. So you don't need to worry. All these things will be taught in the further part of this bootcamp. Next, we have the models. So inside models, we generally store the data or we do the data modeling. For example, you can see here for a news event model, I have added all those things which are available inside the JSON data, and then we can assign all this data to the various different fields or the variables which I have assigned. So this is basically a constructor, and all these things will be assigned to it when we are passing these things inside this particular new event model class. So we store all the files related to models inside this models directory. Next, we have these repositories. So repository generally has all the functions which you interact with or which are available for users to interact with. So we store all the different things related to small functions which our users interacting with inside the app, inside this repository directory. So for an instance, you can consider this logout user. So whenever the user will be clicking on the logout button inside the app, this function will be running in the background, and it will be getting the user out of the login screen and changing all the default values to null again. So you can take an example like this. These are the things we generally store inside this repositories directory. Next, we have a responses. So whenever we are running some function and we are getting some response from it, so we generally add this file. Just a sec. Yeah. So when we are getting some output from the functions which we are running or the things which we are calling, so we generally add those inside the responses, because as the name suggests, responses directory should have all the things which are generally providing us a particular response. So we are storing all these things inside this. So for example, you can see here I have used a check connection.dart file. So this will be checking if the connection or a mobile connection is active or not. So whenever a user is opening an application, it will be checking if the mobile is connected with either mobile data or with Wi-Fi. So it will be checking, and according to that, it will be returning a string. So if the user has connected his device with mobile data, it will be returning mobile. If he has connected it with the Wi-Fi, so it will be returning Wi-Fi, and if he has not connected, so it will be returning none on the place of this mobile and Wi-Fi. So we can then handle the conditions accordingly, and then we can tackle the user according to ourselves. Now, the next thing which we have is the utils. So util basically stands for utilities. So most of the things which are generally constant inside our application, so we store all those things inside this utils directory. So for example, you can see that we have this constants.dart file. So this is storing a list of all the states which are available in India. So you can see here, and we generally mark these files as static because a user generally don't change these files. So this is what we stored inside the constants. And we also have a styles.dart file. I haven't added the things in it, but it has all the data related to, like, what amount of padding we want to provide or what color we want the user to see. So it generally has data related to that. Now let's move at the one of the most important part, which is the view part. So view part has three different subdirectories in it. The first one is the authentication. So for setting up an authentication or for implementing various different authentication, you can store all the code related to authentication or files related to authentication inside this auth folder. So in this app or in this particular project, I have implemented Google login and sign up. So I have created a separate file for that, and I have also implemented a login and sign up with email. So I have made two different files related to that, and I have added them inside the auth directory. Next, we have this pages. So this pages will be holding or having all the uh, code related to the different screens or UI, which is basically visible to the user. So you can see for a pages, I have a particular screen named as about the app screen, and I have a main file related to that particular screen, and all the widgets which I am using inside this screen are stored inside this widget directory present inside about the app. So these are the three widgets which are there, and I have added the particular code related to them inside this widgets directory. So you can store all the pages or the screens which are you having inside this pages directory. Now this partial generally contains the code which is stateless, and we don't want to interact with it throughout our app. So you can add the code related to that. Also, if you are having a circular progress indicator, or you are having something which you generally don't want to interact with, or you don't want to add, or you want to keep that part separate from your main screen, so you can add code related to that inside partials. So this was it for all the three or different file structure which are available inside our Flutter project. So if you guys have any doubt in these basic structure or intermediate or advanced structure, so let me know in comments, and then we can move forward. The file system we are using is for front end. How and where are we creating a backend? Like, where do we create API? So for the if you are using the basic file structure, so you create all the files related to API and backend inside a particular lib directory only, and you can add the code related to your API inside the main files or along with the UI part. If you are using what we can say the intermediate file structure, then the API part is generally stored inside the first directory which we are having. Inside the models and view, we generally don't store the API part. We put it inside the directory or the control directory which we are having. And if you are using this advanced file structure, so we generally have an API folder which you can see is present below the lib directory. So we add all the files related to API there. And for the backend part, if the backend is like small, like increasing the count by one or setting a state of particular variable, so we generally add it inside the UI only, as it is not much of a hassle for the user to interact with, and it generally don't tampers the performance of your application. So But if the part of the backend is like it will be requiring some resources, or it will be tackling or handling the performance of your app, then we generally keep it separate inside either repositories or inside either responses. And if it is related to the blog part, so we add it inside the blogs directory. Can we move the theme data to a new file? So in the main from main.dat file. Okay, so just a sec. I guess you are talking about this particular theme data which is present inside the build. So you cannot move this theme data and if you are moving the theme data, what you are doing is you are trying to complex your code. As it is not doing much, or it is staying similar or providing a UI part to your application, so you can keep it constant. And like if you want to move it to some particular file, then you need to provide your return type according to that, which suits this theme, and then you can add this to your separate file as well. So the answer would be like yes, you can move it, but it is not recommended doing that. Yes, we will be seeing the ML kit implementation as well. Now let's move towards the app or the basic widgets which are generally used inside Flutter. One more thing, folks, that the part which we are having, the last part is which is the dice application. So I'll be uploading a separate video related to that tomorrow morning at 1, because I think you guys are facing the problem with the quality. So I have to see like what all things I can do to provide you with the best quality for that particular application. So like you can start working on the application as well. So I'll try to post as fast as or as soon as possible. So we'll be seeing all the basic widgets now, and after that we'll be wrapping the session up with some questions. Yeah, let me close this. So this is the basic file or the basic app which you must have created watching the video which I posted in the morning. So it has an app bar which contains the code related to the app bar, or text widget related to the app bar. Next is the list of some widgets which I have implemented inside this particular body for this screen. So I'll be walking you through all the components or all the parts which are available, and all the things which you can add in the future in this. So yeah, let's start with the containers. So the first thing which you guys will be using most of the time is a container. So what a container is, container basically contains all the elements or all the other widgets which are available inside Flutter. So what all things you can add inside a container? So the first thing which you can add inside a container is the alignment. So what alignment is? For example, if you are adding a particular text inside the container and you want that text to be like striked towards or move towards left, or move towards right, top, bottom, or top right, top left. So there are 8 directions which you can add. But basically most of the most used one are center, left, and right. So you can add your alignment here by using the alignment widget here, or the alignment class which extends the alignment geometry. Next, what we can add is the height and widget for the width for the container. So basically providing a size to the container. But there are chances that you sometimes don't need to provide this height and width, and the container will be exceeding or taking all the space which is available to it inside the code. So but basically if you are having some cases where you want to provide the height and width, so you generally set it to maximum or media query of context size widget. So what this line means is that it will be taking all the available space which is taking your screen size or assuming it to be the size of your screen. So it will be taking all the available space for the height and width. Next, we have this decoration. So what decoration basically has is it has the color or the things which we want to add to a container, and we want the container to be decorated a bit. So we add all the things related to the decoration in this particular decoration class. The first thing which I have added is the color. So basically, if I want the container to be colored, so I have provided a color to it. Next, I have added some radius to it. So the radius or the border radius is generally used when you want to provide circular radius to your container. So you just provide a border radius dot circular and you pass the value in it, like whatever value you want the container to have to be circular. Next, we have a box shadow. So box shadow generally takes a list of all the box shadows you want to add to your container, and you can provide the color according to yourself or according to your need. This offset value will be taking the direction. So if I want the box shadow to be visible 1 point towards X and 2 points towards Y, so I have used this offset here. Next, you can provide the blur radius and the spread radius. So this will be basically related to how much you want to spread or how much you want to blur your color. So you are passing the radius for that. So this was for the container. You generally use all these things which are mentioned, but there are few more things. So what you can do to see this thing is you can just take your cursor over the container and it will be loading all those things accordingly, and you can then add the things whichever you want to use inside your application. Or one more thing, if you are using VS Code, is that you can press Control and space, and it will be loading all the things which are available inside the container. And then you can choose the file, and you can read also here, like according to your need, whatever thing you want to add inside your Flutter project. Now looking at the next widget which we are having, so inside this container or inside this container as the top widget, I'm having a child named as column, or the child widget which is a column. So a column generally takes the axis alignment which we are having. So I have passed the main axis alignment. So for a column, the main axis is from top to down and the cross axis is from left to right. But for a row, the main axis is from left to right, and the cross axis is from top to bottom. So we can pass the alignment. So we want the items to be appearing in a particular alignment. So we generally pass alignment according to us. Next, we have some children's. So column basically can contain various different children's which we can pass. So it takes children's as a list. And inside this, I have passed a gesture detector. So what gesture detector do is, if you are tapping or if you are interacting with or adding a particular child inside this column, and if you are clicking it or if you are tapping it or like pressing it for a long time, then it will be performing something whichever you have passed inside this curly braces. And I have also passed the behavior here. So for example, if you are having a gesture detector having a container inside it, and if you are passing some spaces or some spaces are available towards the left and right of that particular text, and if you are clicking on those spaces, so if you have set the behavior to nothing, then it won't be taking or it won't be identifying the tab from that. But if you have set the behavior to hit as behavior dot opaque, so it will be taking the input from the tap of the spaces as well. So this is one thing which you can add. Apart from this, you generally have a child for it. So whatever thing you want to display as a child for your project, so you can add that as well. And apart from this on tap thing, there are various different things which you can use, like drag state start behavior or the key for identifying this particular gesture detector. You can also use on double tap, so it will be detecting all the things whenever you are double tapping on it, or whenever you are like tapping twice on it. You can also select double tap cancel, so it will be canceling all the things when you are double tapping on it. And accordingly, you can see all the things which are available inside for this gesture detector, all the functions you can run or all the things which you can see. Next, we have a text widget. So a text widget is generally used for displaying the text inside the application which we are having. So the first thing or the most important thing or required part is this string which it takes. So this is the part of the text which is displayed to the user. Next thing which we generally pass is the style for this text. So if we want to add a particular color to our text which we are having, or if we want to provide some size to that text, then we can add the that inside the text style which is present for the style of the text which we are adding. Now one more thing which we can add here is the font weight. So if we want our the weight of the text which we are adding to be bold, or to be like minimal or normal, so we can add it using the font weight. We can also provide the letter spacing, so it is for making or providing some space between the letters. So you can see here in this app screen that I have added an icon which is inside a gesture detector, and whenever I'll be clicking on this particular icon, it will be printing something. So let me try and click on it. So you can see whenever I'm pressing this icon, it is printing something, and it is increment the count as the same thing is being print again and again. For the text, you can see that I have passed, this is an example text and it is displaying the similar text here. And I have passed the size to be 20. So it is taking the size for 20, and I have passed font weight and letter spacing. So the letters are appearing a bit away from one another. Next thing which we have is a circular progress indicator. So basically, as I mentioned, that whenever you are using some API or you are fetching some data from the user, or whenever you are interacting with some APIs from Firebase, or adding a user to the database, so you generally take, or the app generally takes some time. So you don't want the user to feel like the app has stuck. So you add a circular progress indicator which checks the condition. So if the app is taking some time, it will keep on loading, and when the condition is set to fall, it will stop, and then make the app move towards the next thing which we have coded it for. Next, we have a raise button. So it is basically a button which is raised from the, what we can say, the bottom of the screen. So in this we can pass on press. So whenever we will be pressing this button, it will be printing something. So as I am pressing this, it is printing button is pressed, and you can see that here it is increment the count as the same thing is being pressed again and again. I have passed a child to it, which is a text widget. So it is the text which is there for this button. Or we can pass different things also, like if I want to pass a container inside it, or if I want to pass an icon inside it, so I can pass that as well. It's totally up to us. It just need to be the widget, the child which we are passing inside it. I have set the color to red. Elevation is basically the raise which it has from the bottom of the screen, from the base of the screen. The next thing which we are having is the shape. So for making the corners of this particular button to be rounded, I have provided this shape and set the border radius to circular, and I have also provided the border side, or the borders for this particular button to be set to red. Let me change it to black and save it. So it will be taking some time to hot reload as the system is lagging a bit, and it will be updating as I speak. So then let's move to next thing until it saves and updates all the thing. So you can see that a bit that the border has been updated to black color. Now let's move to the floating action button. So floating action button is mostly similar to the raise button, but it is generally in the form of a circle, and we use it the basic app or the first app which we have created. It basically has this, and it is present on the leftmost side at the rightmost side at the bottom, and we generally use it when we don't want to have a particular button for, or we don't want to add a particular button for our application. The first thing which we have inside this floating action button is the tooltip. So what a tooltip is, when you will be clicking on this button for a long time, it will be displaying something to us. So this is the tooltip to let user know what is the use of this particular floating action button. I have passed a background color to it along with some elevation so that it is raised to 12 elevation from the base of the screen. Next, we have added a splash screen. So whenever you will be clicking on this floating action button, it will be displaying a particular color, which is the splash color. So I have set that splash color to black. Next, we have on press. So whenever I'm pressing this button, it is printing something on the bottom debug terminal. So this is basically the on press thing, which run through this on press. You can run a function, or you can print something, or you can change the state of some particular variable. You also pass a child to it. So similar to the raise button, we are also having a child, and this time I have passed an icon to it. So you can add icons according to your need or child according to your need. So these are all the basic widgets which you generally use when you are starting with your Flutter development. As we move forward, you get to know more different widgets which are available, and you start using various different widgets. But these are the basic ones which are generally used whenever you are starting with your Flutter development. Now, if you guys have any doubt in these all widgets, or if you want me to repeat some of these, so let me know. Else, we can take some questions and then we can wrap this session up. I guess there are no doubts as of now, so I think we can wrap this session up. And I'll be uploading the thing related to. Just a sec. Scroll up. Let me close this terminal. So we have a question which says, would Flutter project be enough to present ourselves as an Android developer in an interview? So I don't think so. Like these will be enough to call yourself an Android developer. What you can call yourself is a cross-platform app developer. So when you are coding some apps in Flutter, so these are basically for iOS and Android as well. You can also make desktop app with this and web app for this, but this is a different thing. But you can create the app for those with the same code base. I don't think so. It would be right to call yourself as an Android or only Android developer after making projects with Flutter. Cool. I'll repeat about the main axis and the cross axis alignment. Yeah, for the column, we are having main axis and the cross axis alignment. So as I mentioned, that column has various different widgets which we can pass inside the children property of this column. So what main axis and cross axis alignment do is uh, it provides an access to the elements or to the childs which are provided inside or which are added inside the child property of this column. So if we are having in the app which I showed you, you must have seen for the main axis alignment, I have set it to start. So all the elements or all the widgets which were present, they were starting from the top of the screen. And I have set the cross axis alignment to center. So all the elements or the widgets which were present inside the center of the screen towards the cross axis. So you must be thinking what a cross axis and main axis for a column is. So for a column, as it is from top to bottom, so the main axis will be from top to bottom, but the cross axis alignment will be from left to right. But in place of column, if we are using a row, so for a row, the main axis alignment will be from left to right, and the cross axis alignment will turn to top to bottom. So you don't need to worry about this. You will be knowing or you will be remembering this more frequent when you are working on different things on it. I also confused all these things when I started with Flutter, but it's totally fine. Once you start working on the app and you get your hand set while coding Flutter or coding apps in Flutter, so like it's totally fine. So Flutter is basically coded inside Dart. I guess these were the only questions for today's session. So one more part for the session is remaining. So I'll be uploading a video for that in the highest quality which I can provide you guys with. And as soon as possible, I'll be like shooting the video and then I'll be posting it, and I'll be updating all of you guys with the link as well. And from tomorrow, as I mentioned in the first part of the stream, what we'll be doing is we'll be pre-recording the session and we'll be playing those recorded videos inside the live. And if some of you have any doubts related to a particular part of the video, then you can ask us to stop, and then I can explain the code or the part which you are having a problem with. So I guess that was it for today. And thank you everyone for joining. And we are very sorry for the things or the mess which was there in the initial part of the video. We'll try to improve and provide you with the best things possible. Thank you everyone for joining.